Jessica, there are a lot of candidates, both recent graduates and people with background like yourself, right, who have involved in some other careers. Now they are interested in transitioning to management consulting. So, what would you suggest? How to break into management consulting?
I would say the best way to break into management consulting is to first identify why you want to become a consultant. There are many industries, there are many different types of clients, and there are many types of jobs, roles that you can hold as a consultant. So though I am overall a management consultant on a project, I may be a project manager. And that requires me to use my leadership skills and my communication skills to ensure that my team gets everything done by deadline and that I, accurately and truthfully communicate that over to the client. So I think you should think about what interests you. I enjoy retail industry. The client I've been working on is, part of the hospitality, travel industry. Look at what industry you like, and then also think about the type of work that you are most comfortable with doing and that you are best at doing. If you are very good at coding, then look into tech and try to find a position where you're actually doing the coding work or you're learning about doing the coding. And I would say leverage the work that you've done in your past jobs to push yourself into a segment that will either build on those skills or give you the skills you want to do. So for example, if you were teaching like I was at one point and you want to get into consulting, well, part of teaching is you have to create plans and you have to teach, you have to lead a group of students, and then you have to take the feedback and based off of the lessons, the cooperation, whether or not the content was easy for the children to understand. That's something that I would take, and to transform that into management consulting. Now as a project manager, I would have to outline an entire lesson, I guess, that I pass on to the client. And so with that, I found that my strength was managing. And so that's when I would use a few of the roles and characteristics of my job as a teacher to put that on the forefront and push me into a position where I can excel and build on my skills as a project manager. So that's a personal example. And I think that that's what you should do. Just kind of think about what you want to do with consulting, which one of your strengths can be used and can be kind of magnified and built upon, or which ones you don't want to do, and then kind of avoid that and select your industry.
Great. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of competition out in the market today, right? For any type of job, not just for management consulting, but management consulting, I would say it's even more competitive, right? Because of
Yes.
the demand and definitely a great career scope. So, what's the best job search strategy that you adopted, or you would recommend to anyone to adopt at this point?
So the first one is, it's kind of not what you know, it's who you know. If you can display, that you are someone who exemplifies like commitment, who is steadfast, who is reliable, who is like kind of just profound, you have a presence that people can trust you and what you're saying. You know that you have professional skills. Your presence is professional. It makes it easier for you to get into consulting because those are a few of the traits that you need. And if I see that as, a consultant from a colleague or someone that I used to go to school with or someone from a previous job, I am more likely to refer you to a company that I'm working for, and I will also give you a recommendation as well. So I think you should befriend those who are consultants, or have consulting experience, and get that one-on-one mentoring coaching from them, and then kind of ask their opinion, like, where do you think I would fit in? Also, I think you should do research on all of the companies that you want to work for. I work for Accenture, and so sometimes when I'm at the client site, I'm sitting in a room with people from Ernst & Young or EY. I'm sitting with Deloitte. And then I'm also sitting with other smaller boutique firms. So it really depends on what type of firm you would want to work for. Mine has over 400,000 employees worldwide. Like we have branches in like almost every country, the biggest countries. So I know Accenture is kind of pushing, its way globally and it's doing a great job. But then there are some people who would prefer a boutique firm where you're not really traveling. You can make it home every night by 6 and you have probably 200 employees of which you guys all know each other. So I think if you distinguish from what type of environment and culture that you want to work for, it would make it easier for you to kind of land that job, because if you have the drive that would work best in a small team setting, I would say look at your boutique firms and they're probably hiring. And then you can also find people that work there on LinkedIn and maybe you have a mutual connection. Someone can make an introduction, or you can, professionally approach them and say, hi, I am interested in management consulting and I've seen what you've done. And last but not least, I think you should look at the commitment of that company to the community, like their corporate citizenship. And I say this because a lot of the companies end up doing volunteer work. Like I know here at Accenture, we'll do lots of volunteer work in the Atlanta area with another company that I know. And I also happen to be friends with the volunteer coordinator for this company. So I'll go down and I know the type of projects that Accenture is working on. And because of that, I'm like, okay, this is something that I could see myself wanting to do. So I see how Accenture gives back to the environment and to its communities, and that's what drew me to the company. So I think those are three major things that you should look at.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jessica. And I think it was a wonderful, wonderful answer. And it's applicable for everyone, not just for management consulting. Networking is definitely key for everything. When nothing is working, do networking.
Precisely. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So, Jessica, what three tips would you recommend to make your resume stand out for a management consultant position?
Sure. So one of the tips would definitely have to be to pull out your leadership experiences, and you should do that by adding a numerical value to everything that you've done. So, instead of saying like, I volunteered with this group and we went on a mission to another country, it would be better if you were to rewrite that and say, I volunteered or I pioneered with a group of 10 other college students or, medical students, whoever, whatever it may be. I went with a group of 10 students over to a third world country and we were able to feed 200,000 refugees. I added numbers so it kind of shows the magnitude of what you've been able to work with and how many people you've been able to impact, because consultants, we have a large impact. We help our clients make an impact. So that's number one, add numbers to your resume. Number two, I would say definitely add those experiences that you don't think really matter. For example, they may just seem small to you, but they can actually be pretty big to the company you're about to work for. For example, I mentor at-risk youth at a nearby school system, and two of them, what our job is to prepare them senior year to help get them into college. And so it's only two girls that I mentor, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal because I do a few other things. But because of that, it shows that you're committed to a project to see it all the way through. So I'm working with these girls from the summer after junior year all the way until they get their college acceptance. You may have a project that stems, they're usually minimum 3 months, and I've been on my project for about 2 years. So they see that you have commitment and you can follow something all the way through. And then third, I think that you should highlight an interest outside of work. So I say this because it shows that you have more than, what your academic demonstration is or what your professional experience is. Because as a consultant, as I mentioned, you do a lot of work. You do a lot of work, and one way to make sure that it just doesn't get to you is to have a great work-life balance. And so one thing I do, I mentioned the gym. So for me, bodybuilding was something that I got into. I found it was very fun. Lifting weights just provides so much euphoria to me. And so that's something I truly enjoy doing. And so I mentioned that, and that kind of shows something different because it's like, what? Oh, girl, you like to go to the gym? That's crazy. Can you teach us some things? It's those type of things that are also topic conversation starters. You tend to have dinners with your clients, lunches with your team. When you are working so hard, you don't want to talk about work over food and drinks. I promise you, you don't want to. So what is it about you that makes you different from everyone else? And you'd be quite delighted to see that everyone has kind of that little unique, interesting fact about them. And it also shows that you are not all about your work. So those are my 3 tips, just adding numbers, um, pulling out experiences that aren't professional and academic, and then also highlighting your hobbies that make you unique.
Cool. So, from your experience, Jessica, what are the 2 to 3 key skills that you think that are really, really important for every management consultant to have?
Sure. So the first one is patience. What we do is we derive a solution and we help implement that solution. That does not happen overnight. There are many factors, there are indicators that come into play that influence every single solution, every single outcome, and every risk and problem. You need to be patient because a project may go over longer than it should. A meeting that was supposed to be 30 minutes ends up having to be 5 hours over the course of 1 hour increments for the next 3 weeks, 5 weeks. Your project may say that, you're supposed to be here for 3 months and then 6 months, and then a 1 year project turns into 2 years. And I've seen that happen. And it's like, you really need to be patient, because when you come into it with a patient mindset, any type of surprise won't phase you. You won't grow tired and you won't be upset. You're just kind of like, okay, well, I factored in that, it's going to take longer. And another one I would say is to be empathetic, because we are the experts. Everyone calls on us to provide our expertise. So we're constantly researching. We know what to do. If they knew what to do, they wouldn't be calling us. So we know what to do. And sometimes it can be quite intimidating for them, or it could be like they probably don't trust you right away. You need to be able to view what you are delivering to the client from their perspective. So if they see a PowerPoint slide where you're delivering a message and you think it is very coherent, to them they may have so many questions, and you may be wondering, how do you have a question? Like, this slide clearly says everything that you need to know, but you have to remember you're an expert. So you think, it looks great, but these people have no idea what you're talking about, or you're trying to convince them that your solution is right. So you need to be empathetic, and when they're asking questions or when you're creating the content, think of the questions that they may have so that you can be prepared to respond to them. So empathy is the second one. And then I would say the third one is to be outgoing. So I would say I'm an outgoing person, but I have my limit. So I think after about 10 hours of being in front of people, I need to be alone. And the thing is, when you are in front of a client or when you're with your team, you can't just kind of be standoffish. You can't be quiet. At a dinner, if we're doing a game where everyone goes around and announces themselves, you have to, put on a smile, and you have to be relatable. You have to be personable. You have to be charming, because people are trusting you with their business to come up with a way to help them. And if you seem like you're unapproachable, closed off, like, they're not going to want to talk to you, and then they're not going to want to trust you. And then that's something that everyone notices. So if we're at a big dinner and everyone's having a good old time, drinking, talking, getting to know each other, and you're in the corner just not talking to anybody, you're on your phone, you don't want to get involved, you don't want to play the table game, they notice that, and then that can look like, well, she doesn't really care, or she or he doesn't really want to be here. You never want to give that off. You have to be open, and then when it's time to shut down, take that time to yourself, because when I'm in the hotel by myself, that's when I just kind of release, and I'm like, oh, let me recharge for the next day. So that's the third one. So I say patience, empathy, and charming.
Perfect.